Steve Harvey, the man who slept in his car before he made the world laugh. What if the person who made millions of people laugh every single day was secretly sleeping in the back of a beat-up car, washing his face in a gas station bathroom, and praying that tomorrow would finally be the day things turned around? Not for a week, not for a month, for years. That's not a movie plot. That's the real life of one of the most recognizable faces in American entertainment. And the wildest part? Most people have absolutely no idea how close he came to giving up entirely. Not once, not twice, but so many times it should have broken him permanently. This is the story of Steve Harvey, and I promise you, by the time we're done here, you'll never look at that big grin of his the same way again. Born on January 17, 1957, in Welch, West Virginia, Steve Harvey came into the world as the youngest of 5 kids in a family that knew struggle the way most people know their own neighborhood. His father, Jesse Harvey, worked the coal mines. His mother, Eloise Harvey, taught school and stretched every single dollar until it almost snapped. When the family eventually relocated to Cleveland, Ohio, and planted roots on East 112th Street, life didn't get softer. If anything, it got louder, with the sounds of poverty, cold rooms, thin meals, and a little boy who walked around with holes in his shoes, and a stutter he couldn't shake no matter how hard he tried. Now, imagine being a young black kid in the 1960s Midwest, with a stammer so bad that every sentence felt like a public punishment. Every time Steve tried to speak, he had to fight just to get the words out. And sometimes the laughter from other kids arrived before he even finished. That kind of wound doesn't just heal on its own. It follows you. But here's the moment that changed everything. In elementary school, a teacher gave the class a simple assignment. Write about what you want to be when you grow up. Steve picked up his pencil and wrote, with the full, trembling confidence of a child who hasn't yet learned to be ashamed of dreaming, that he wanted to be on television. The room laughed. The teacher didn't just correct him or guide him. She tore the paper. She called his parents, as if ambition itself was some kind of behavioral problem that needed to be reported. That boy sat there, humiliated, in front of everyone, his dream ripped apart in real time. But his father, Jesse Harvey, didn't let that be the final word. He told his son to go home, write that same dream down again, put it somewhere he could see it every single morning and every single night, and read it out loud until it stopped feeling impossible. That piece of paper became Steve Harvey's first stage. Just him, a wall, and a sentence the world had tried to laugh out of existence. Years later, Steve would say he sent his former teacher a television set every Christmas. Not as revenge, as a reminder. Fast forward to the 1980s. Steve had graduated from Glenville High School, tried a few directions, college, boxing, odd jobs, and eventually landed on the one thing that kept calling him back: comedy. He was delivering mail, cleaning carpets, selling insurance door to door, working as a mechanic, all of it just to keep the lights on, while the dream sat quietly in the background, waiting. Then in 1985, a friend pushed him toward an open mic night at a small club in Cleveland. Dim lighting, strangers who owed him nothing. Steve walked up to that microphone, carrying more fear than jokes. But something happened. The first laugh broke through, then another, and then the whole room was with him. Not laughing at the stuttering kid from school, but laughing with the man he was becoming. That night, he earned $50. $50 that felt less like money and more like a message from the universe saying, "This is it. This is your language." The very next morning, he quit his job. Now here's where the story gets hard, because quitting didn't lead to a montage of success. It led to nearly 3 years of sleeping in a 1976 Ford. He kept food in a cooler when there was food to keep. He found showers in public pools and gas station bathrooms. He woke up with stiff bones, fogged windows, and the quiet terror of a man wondering if he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. The loneliness of those nights is something most people can't imagine. being invisible to a city that was completely unaware that a future television icon was parked somewhere inside it, just trying to survive until the next gig. The hardest part wasn't the hunger. Steve would later say that you can get through a few rough days by telling yourself it's temporary. But years start to talk to you differently. They start to ask harder questions. They start to sound a lot like your own voice, telling you it's time to accept that this dream was never really yours. He nearly gave in one night. He reached for the phone to call his father and say he was done. But before he dialed, he checked his answering machine. 2 bookings were waiting. A club in Jacksonville offering $150. Another show the next night for the same amount. $300 was not a fortune, but it was a bridge. It was enough to get him to New York, where an audition for Showtime at the Apollo was waiting, and where everything was about to change. When Steve Harvey walked onto that Apollo stage, he wasn't just performing comedy. He was carrying Cleveland, the Ford, the torn paper, the stutter, the hunger, all of it. And when Harlem laughed with him, it wasn't just applause. It was redemption, arriving on a schedule only God could have planned. From there, the momentum built. Television came knocking. Me and the Boys, in 1994. The Steve Harvey Show from 1996 all the way through 2002, making him a cultural institution. Then from 1997 to 2000, he joined Cedric the Entertainer, D.L. Hughley, and the legendary Bernie Mac on the Kings of Comedy Tour, filling arenas across the country with the kind of laughter that shakes walls. When Spike Lee captured it all in the documentary The Original Kings of Comedy in 2000, Steve Harvey's place in American history became permanent. Books followed. Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man in 2009 became a massive bestseller and eventually a hit film. Straight Talk, No Chaser in 2010. Act Like a Success in 2014. Each one read less like a self-help book and more like a map drawn by a man who knew exactly what it felt like to be completely lost. Honors stacked up. BET Humanitarian of the Year in 2011. A star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2013. Multiple Emmy Awards. NAACP Image Awards. And in 2015, the city of Cleveland officially renamed the street where he grew up, East 112th Street, Steve Harvey Way. The same cracked sidewalks where he once walked in shoes with holes. Same block, different chapter. But fame has this cruel little habit of testing people with the very thing they're most afraid of. For Steve Harvey, who had spent decades being terrified of public embarrassment, of being the stuttering kid laughed at in a classroom, the universe handed him the Miss Universe stage in December of 2015. He announced the wrong winner, on live television, in front of the entire world. The room went stiff. The cameras stayed close. The confusion was visible and painful and absolutely unforgiving. And in that moment, all those old feelings came flooding back. The classroom, the laughter, the torn paper, the fear of being reduced to one broken moment, no matter how much you've built. But here's what Steve Harvey did that separated him from almost everyone else in that position. He didn't run. He didn't deflect. He walked back out, held up the card, looked into the cameras, and said plainly, "It was my mistake." In a world where powerful people almost never do that, he chose full accountability. The memes came anyway. The late-night jokes came anyway. Weeks of headlines treated 60 seconds like it could erase 30 years of work. But the man who had once slept in a car because he refused to quit showed up again the following year to host the same pageant. Because that's what survivors do. They go back. Now, let's talk about what success almost costs you. Because this part of Steve's story doesn't get enough attention. In 1981, at just 24 years old, he married his first wife, Marcia Harvey. Together they had 3 children, twin daughters, Brandy and Carly, and a son, Broderick Harvey Jr. For a while, it was everything. Small voices, family dinners, a home full of laughter that no stage could compete with. But Steve was always gone. Another gig, another city. Another chance he couldn't afford to miss. And Marcia was at home stretching every dollar, raising 3 kids, and slowly learning what it meant to love someone who was always somewhere else. The marriage ended in 1994. The divorce hit him in a way that fame couldn't fix, and applause couldn't quiet. He had chased the dream to save his family, and the chasing had pulled him away from the very people he was trying to save. Then came Mary Shackelford. They married in 1996. A son, Winton Harvey, was born in 1997, and Steve held that baby with the careful tenderness of a man who understood exactly what he'd lost the first time around. But the pattern returned. More travel, more pressure, more empty chairs at dinner. By 2005, that marriage was over too, and this time, the ending played out in public, with allegations and headlines, and the entire country forming opinions about a man most of them had never actually met. Winton was only 8 years old. Steve knew what it felt like, from his children's side of things, to watch a home come apart. Then came the financial reality check. After the divorce, Steve looked at his bank account and found roughly $1,700. For a man the world assumed was rich, $1,700 felt like standing at the bottom of a very deep hole. And then he discovered that through a serious accounting failure, his taxes had gone unfiled for 7 years. The interest, the penalties, the pressure, it was suffocating. But instead of hiding from it, he got up before sunrise every morning and sat behind a radio microphone, because that was one place the debt couldn't follow him. He performed every night he could. He wrote books. He showed up. He rebuilt. And then came Marjorie Harvey. They had actually crossed paths years earlier, in Memphis, when Steve spotted her from a stage and told people around him that she was going to be his wife someday. Life separated them. But in 2005, after everything, the debt, the divorces, the public embarrassment, she came back into his life. In 2007, at 50 years old, Steve Harvey married her, and for the first time in a very long time, he had a home that felt like one. Marjorie made him rest. She reminded him to take care of his body, to sleep, to eat well, to stop running from stillness. She prayed with him over fears he never showed the crowd. Steve would later say that most of what people admired about his later years was built after he married her. Together, they built a blended family of 7 children. And at one of their family events in 2015, Marjorie's son Jason stood up and publicly honored Steve, not for his fame, not for his television shows, but for giving him his last name and becoming a real father. Steve Harvey, the man who could make 1,000 strangers burst out laughing in an empty moment, broke down completely. Because that was the one kind of applause no stage had ever given him. Today, approaching 70, Steve Harvey runs an entertainment empire that stretches across television, radio, books, wellness, and global productions. Family Feud airs in countries across Africa. The Steve Harvey Morning Show reaches millions daily. The Steve Harvey Mentoring Program brings hundreds of fatherless young men together every year to learn discipline, confidence, and what it looks like when a grown man refuses to give up on them. He's lost weight. He's taken care of his health. He wears bold, beautiful suits that say, "I'm still here, and I'm not apologizing for it." And in June 2026, when his family grieved the loss of Marjorie's father, James Bridges Sr., the man Steve called Pop Bridges, he sat beside his wife as a husband first, a son-in-law first, a human being first. Not a celebrity, just a man holding his family together when the room felt empty. Here's the part I want you to carry with you. A teacher once ripped a piece of paper that a stuttering boy from Cleveland had written his dream on. That boy grew up, slept in a car, got divorced twice, went nearly broke twice, got laughed at on live television in front of the entire planet, and still became the man who sends young boys home from a weekend camp standing straighter than when they arrived. That's not just a success story, that's a blueprint. If there is a dream you wrote down somewhere, and somebody, a teacher, a parent, a friend, a voice in your own head, tried to tear it up, I need you to hear this. The paper can be replaced. The dream doesn't have to be. If this story moved you even a little bit, leave a comment below. Not as praise for a celebrity, but as a signal to someone out there tonight who needs to know that the thing they're surviving right now isn't the end of their story. It might just be the beginning of the chapter worth telling.